It's time for Show Me the Franchise.
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
It's time for Show Me the Franchise.
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
Welcome to Show Me the Franchise, the podcast that talks about franchises of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, genres, and types. I am one of your hosts, Tom Stadler, here as usual with my hard-rocking companion, the most glorious flowing hair in all the land, Mr. Fred Dakin.
How's everyone doing out there in the crowd?
Woo!
Woo! All right. Come on. That was me trying to do like a who?
Whoa,
Where did that come from?
We got groupies outside for that. It's about time.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Had to get a Patreon going.
We had to get a Patreon going because we had so much following. That's right. You can find us on a Patreon now if you haven't even looked at that yet. But we're here today on the main feed again, talking about a topic that means a lot to some of us, maybe not as much to others. Old time music at this point.
It's old timey.
I'm like, this is 40 years old now, isn't it?
Yep.
That's crazy. We are talking about hair metal. Fred, how you feel about hair metal?
I like it. You know, I don't know much about it. It's not like something where like, let me tell you about a bunch of different hair metal bands. But when I'm in my car or I'm out and I hear a hair metal song, that bass drum's going, that guitar lick is licking. I'm having a good time. I'm always down for hair metal.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm a little bit of a dad in spirit, and I think you guys know that about me, and I'm looking at both of you, and I'm going to introduce our guest here again because coming back to help us complete this metal trilogy is the one and only Josh Randall. Josh, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Happy to be back.
I'm glad that you could make it back, and I'm sure you were just excited to come here and talk about hair metal, right?
I'm always excited to talk about metal music, but I'll be honest, hair metal is not exactly the genre that I am a passionate fan of, but I do have some guilty pleasures here.
All right. Well, I think, is it safe to say that most people have a guilty pleasure from the hair metal era, right?
I would think so.
I mean, definitely guilty pleasure.
Is that a reference?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought of hair metal as like sex metal. So
Oh, I see. We're talking the literal, like, hey, let's not sex shame Josh. Sex is empowering. And honestly, I think that is something interesting about hair metal is that it is sort of empowering. These guys are out there, and it's not all just guys. We have a couple females we'll be talking about today, but there are people who are out here really like letting their bodies show, and they did a lot of time on their hair.
I would say it's actually you're spot on. It's a very empowering genre of music, I think, in terms of confidence in your image and everything like that. It was also a very, very like open, supportive era of style and fashion as well.
Yeah, I do often think about, with regard to hair metal, the old Chappelle Show sketch where, like, the
Dee Snider.
Well, not Dee Snider was on Chappelle's Show?
In a sketch, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was the one with Paul Mooney. No, it was they were interviewing people on the streets, and they interviewed Dee Snider at some point. And I think it had to do with Paul Mooney.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I was thinking more about like the games or the shirts versus the blouses conversation and just how they. I mean, and look, it's a little like it doesn't age well, but it was just this idea that like men dressed a little more effeminate in the 80s, especially in hair metal. And like, I mean, there's like eyeshadow going on. It's a lot of teased out hair, which I think it's like kind of coming back. And I think there's a lot of people who are just sort of like, I just like doing this and it's great.
Yeah, my memory's crystallizing more on this now. It was Dee Snider getting interviewed for the Ask Paul Mooney like questions kind of segment that they had recurring. And Dee Snider, if you're not familiar, is the frontman of Twisted Sister, a classic hair metal band. And a frontman who often dressed in drag for the image of Twisted Sister and whatnot. And he's being interviewed to ask Paul Mooney a question. And it's basically like, what do you think of, he says, hey, Paul, what do you think of this? And he just turns around and like sticks his ass out to the camera. Classic D. Snyder.
He seems like a good time.
Chappelle, I feel like, has got to be a Twisted Sister or D. Snyder fan, because the joke that always stands up is him and his friend getting pulled over, his white friend who like doesn't care that the cops are pulling him over because he's not worried about it.
Right.
And he's like, my friend was blaring, we're not gonna take it. And that clip just like lives rent free in my head. Kind of like a lot of these hair metal songs.
Indeed, indeed. And for those who are not familiar with hair metal, which is also called, and this is according to the internet, so take this for what you will, glam metal or pop metal. In fact, the Wikipedia entry calls it glam metal first and foremost, also known as hair metal. I think it's an interesting thing to say because I think a lot of people, and we're going to talk about this in today's episode, have some issues defining what specifically is hair metal or glam metal or whatever you want to call it, because it is a lot of like pop influenced metal. It's more poppy than we talked about with new metal, even though that was very popular, right, and mainstream. But it's got a lot of like we talked about, big guitar riffs, a lot of bass, a lot of drums, a lot of like upbeat anthems and power ballads, like shit that people want to sing out at a bar, whether or not there's karaoke going on or not, right?
Yep, and it's also hard to define a little, because something that we talked about in our like group chats, trying to define what bands are hair metal, what are not. It was kind of a big happening. A lot of bands who had been around for a while were like adapting it and kind of trying to make music to be a hair metal band or a glam rock band.
Right.
Follow the trend of what was becoming popular at the time.
Right.
Yeah, that is an interesting take. I think there might be a fine line between glam metal and hair metal. I think hair metal is definitely influenced by glam metal, but I mean, for example, there are glam metal bands that are very well known. Queen, I would say, is like poster child of glam metal. And I wouldn't exactly think of Queen when I think of hair metal.
Which is interesting, though, because one, Queen also was a very long, well, I mean, all these bands of the 70s were long-haired bands, right? And you think, though, I have also heard like hair metal referred to as like arena rock sometimes, because it's a lot of like bands that would play like big arenas, and like they have these big ballads that people would kind of sing back to them. And the more you kind of go through it now, and it's like, actually, Queen does kind of fit a lot of that definition, but they have a very different style. And I think it's the same thing we're going to talk about, too, with a couple bands that sort of like influenced and in turn became part of hair metal, like a Kiss specifically.
Yeah.
Because like Kiss's old music is quite different than like their 80s music.
Yep, and I'd say the same for Aerosmith.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a really good example, too. When I was looking through our playlist, our hair metal playlist, like we had all these like classic bands that like, oh yeah, White Snake, Poison, whatever, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses. And then at the very end, there's like a section of like 5 Aerosmith songs. And I'm like, I guess it checks out, but I'm also not certain.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're a group that really always adapted. I mean, they did a Run DMC song, you know, like they did a roller coaster at Disney.
It's true. And I mean, it was honestly the Run DMC song that kind of threw me for a loop of like, these guys are considered hair metal? Like, it's like, how can you be doing a song with Run DMC in the middle of the 80s and then also making, Love in an Elevator, right? And it's like, that inspired the roller coaster.
Right, because I agree, like, Aerosmith is hard for me to pigeonhole as just, like, a hair metal band. But when I think about, like, hair metal, Love in an Elevator, I don't know if that's the exact title, like, plays in my head just because that just sounds like a hair metal song to me.
I think that is the title of the song, by the way.
It's gotta be. What else is it called?
I think it is. Love in an Elevator. We'll be playing a couple of songs by all these bands soon. But I guess one of the things I did want to ask you guys, because we obviously always talk about this too, why do you think hair metal has resonated even still 40 years later? Because honestly, like you think about a lot of these bands, right? And I'm just even thinking specifically, kind of interrupting my thought there for a second, but like Bon Jovi just had a documentary come out about them, and like wow, like what a crazy thing that they are still like relevant 40 years after their heyday. And it's like in a lot of these bands kind of fell off the map where they go and play like county fairs and stuff for years and years, but some of them still persevere, and like, or the Kiss, who pulls in huge crowds after how many years of doing that, right? And now they're retired, but
yeah, no, I agree. Especially because some of them have persevered without ever really evolving from that style of hair metal that they became famous at their peak, and they kind of just ride that legacy like a Kiss. But then you've got a Bon Jovi who had kind of like two different lives, because Bon Jovi of the late 90s, early aughts is not hair metal.
No, not
at all. And depending on what version of Bon Jovi you grew up with, your brain might kind of like have a reset moment when you realize, oh yeah, early Bon Jovi is completely hair metal.
Yeah, throw on Bad Medicine, and I feel you get a little taste of like a Bon Jovi hair metal flavor. Right. But yeah, it's funny you brought that up, because I was like, which of these guys were still like around, like when I'm listening to the radio when I'm a little kid, and it was Bon Jovi still coming out.
It's My Life.
Right, which was everywhere. And I guess his kind of style you would call maybe like similar to like a U2, which would have been like that last phase was like arena rock, just right.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, again, there's that term that kind of gets blended in, arena rock. It's stuff like you can fill an arena, you can fill a big stadium or something like that.
I like to think this is an arena podcast.
It is.
Oh, for sure.
Or the Sphere, at least.
The Sphere, like the movie? Let's not go on a tangent.
The Vegas Sphere.
Yeah.
Oh, the Vegas Sphere.
You sit in there, you got the whole room is just a screen, and it's like a ball.
I mean, we don't have video.
To talk about Dustin Hoffman and Hilary Swank for a moment, or Sharon Stone, whoever it was.
Oh, God. No, not the movie, The Sphere. But yeah, I mean, it's this is a very podcast that's like very like arena, big moments, big things. I mean, we just kind of love what we do. And I mean, people they loved hair metal at the time. I think, as you guys said, people will find a song and they're like, that's my shit. That's my shit right there. And it's just like when that comes on, you get people yelling. Weirdly, the song I keep thinking about is like Journey, but I don't think Journey's hair metal. Like,
that's a tough one.
We talked about this one when we made the playlist. I was like, that's arena rock.
And I think that's another band that's kind of like Queen, of like long hair, 1979, sort of.
They might be considered glam.
Starting to get into that.
Should we say what you think is a good definition for a hair metal song?
Okay.
Just because I think that'd be good to say at the top so people can think about it.
All right. In my mind, the ultimate like hair metal song, like a hair metal song that you already like can recognize immediately, is Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. And you guys want to hear it?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time.
Do you know what year that song came out?
I don't, off the top of my head. Do you want me to look it up?
I'll Google it.
Okay.
For me, that song really hits for me because it makes me think of the film Old School.
Yes, absolutely.
1982.
Ooh.
Early.
The
reason I'm asking,
yeah.
and I was thinking about this earlier today, listening to the playlist, and I actually got to an Aerosmith song, and I noticed the guitar riff in the opening part of the Aerosmith song sounded really similar to two different songs that I had listened to earlier on the playlist. And then here I'm hearing it again. There's a similar guitar riff, and it's like they're so close. And I don't know if it's just like the cadence, the notes, what. I'm not a musician. It reminds me of that opening riff reminds me of The Stroke by Billy Squier,
Oh, yeah.
which came out maybe around the same year or slightly earlier. And I don't know that I'd consider Billy Squier hair metal, but that song is very recognizable when you hear The Stroke, that song. I probably first heard it as a kid in the movie Billy Madison,
Yeah, same.
where Adam Sandler's driving his Pontiac Firebird to the high school. And he's like, got his jean jacket. He sits out in front of his car, thinks he's all cool. And then like, it just shows how like out of touch he is with like the trends of that generation.
Yeah. That song came out in 1981, Josh.
So a year earlier.
Yeah.
But the Aerosmith song that I thought it reminded me of is on our playlist. And the Aerosmith song came out in 87 or 88.
Okay.
And the other song that the Aerosmith riff sounded similar to, along with Billy Squier, was Def Leppard. Pour sugar on me. Pour some sugar on me. But it sounded more like the Billy Squier riff.
Interesting.
And you'd probably have to like listen to all three of those riffs side by side, like you're looking at TVs at Best Buy to like hear the differences. But it's just interesting, like the influences of one band on another.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so Here I Go Again on My Own by Whitesnake, hair metal for sure. Billy Squier, The Stroke, I don't know that it feels like hair metal. And maybe it does to you, but it doesn't to me.
I wouldn't qualify or I wouldn't categorize Billy Squier as hair metal. But it's a good song. I like
Yeah, it's a very good song. So like that's what we got to key in on is like what is it that makes a certain band or a certain song hair metal versus the others that are from the same era that are very adjacent.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the origins, quote unquote, of hair metal, right? Because they say that like the early glam metal, hair metal era evolved directly from the glam rock movement of the 1970s. So it's like bands like, and I think if you talk about glam rock, what's the first band or rather person you think of?
I was going to say Styx.
I mean, yeah.
That's just a glam rock band, I think.
I would think there are, but there's like one person specifically. It's an individual. If you hear glam and I say, you guys can be like, yes, of course.
Is it Billy Idol?
Not Billy Idol. We're talking 70s, not 80s.
Oh, damn.
70s. Again, I'm going back to Queen.
Well, I mean, you're all right. This is not, none of these are wrong answers, but I'm thinking like the one person specifically, David Bowie. Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Bowie. Yeah. No, Bowie, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Bowie, Freddie Mercury. Yeah.
but like, yeah, just think about the looks like of David Bowie. He did a lot of like heavy makeup, a lot of like hair, like styles. He would tease out his hair, especially him in Labyrinth, right? He looks like he's the head of a hair metal band. Like,
Oh,
or the lead singer.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. Like and when you hear that, you're like, oh, of course. But it's not just David Bowie, though, right? Because it's all these bands you mentioned. It's Queen. It's Styx. And then Billy Idol. I think kind of it goes more for a punk feel than hair metal.
I had to look this up. I had to see what did Wikipedia consider Billy Idol's genre? Because when we were discussing what is hair metal or not, I was like, well, Billy Idol, like to me, is like huge in the 80s and has got that like big showmanship of hair metal. But there is a different vibe. Billy Idol didn't have literally like the big long hair
Right.
and all that. He had more like a
Vampire.
vampire and black leather studded jacket and like, leather like gloves on, like looked like he was ready for a street fight or something. And so that was what kind of like punk mixed with apparently, according to Wikipedia, glam metal.
Right.
Or pop metal.
I mean, I think that's exactly what they're saying here is like you take a heavy metal feel, something like maybe like a Black Sabbath, right? Sort of like that tone, or like Rainbow, right? Like those like late 70s that kind of like hit the guitar a little bit harder, right? And it's like, but then you mix it with more theatrical. And the two bands that they mentioned that played a huge influence on this era, and they're two bands that I think a lot of people qualify as hair metal are Alice Cooper and Kiss, right? It's like a lot of big theatrics, a lot of like big show investment, big hair, lots of makeup, lots of things going on, fireworks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Or pyrotechnics, I suppose. Maybe not fireworks. But you think about that, and it's like, I mean, yeah, these two bands kind of just sort of glided in there, even though their 70s stuff doesn't sound much like their 80s stuff.
Right.
Definitely not. By the way, quick appendix for this segment of the conversation.
Sure.
I had to find which Aerosmith song it was that I was thinking of earlier. Ragdoll by Aerosmith. The opening guitar riff in that with the drum beat. Listen to that. Then listen to The Stroke by Billy Squier. Listen to Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. And listen to Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard. And they're all so similar.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of Ragdoll. I think that's fair.
Ragdoll, living in a movie. Hot tramp, daddy's little cutie. You're so fine, I never see you leaving by the back door. Man, hot time.
I mean, it's a great song.
It is a good song.
And you still kind of hear, I don't know where Aerosmith's from, but their old music has like Southern style roots for sure.
Absolutely.
That slide guitar in there is very sweet emotion.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Classic. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, for sure.
Which again, I think, but Sweet Emotion is also a song that I think if they play that during their 80s era, people are getting into that.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
They're like, this is not too different than Van Halen or Guns N' Roses.
Well, I mean, especially when you're talking like slide and other styles of guitar play. I mean, Van Halen like kind of made tapping, didn't quite invent it, but like made it a whole thing, popularized that style of guitar play.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, and speaking of, I think those are bands that kind of evolved out of these early versions of these things, because you do have to point at Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, Kiss, that were very much like, I think people would call them, yeah, like sort of like the arena rock, glam rock of the 70s, of like these big, like kind of like, but they're much more, I think you'd find them much closer to Led Zeppelin there than you would find them to, you know, in the 80s or closer to, yeah, Guns N' Roses, right? But, you know, some of the early glam metal bands that came on the scene, and I'm keep tossing that term out between, it's hair metal, glam metal. It's like Motley Crue.
Classic hair metal.
Yeah. Twisted Sister, Bon
Classic.
Jovi, Rat. But yeah, and I think, you know, you have these bands who start coming on the scene that have taken a lot of this inspiration from these other bands, and they have kind of fused these genres together to create something that's big. It's theatrical. It's loud. Like you said, a lot of slide guitar, a lot of like heavy bass riffs. Like I think of especially the beginning of Running with the Devil, and it's just like bow, 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 like
Yep.
kind of leads you in, and then you just sort of like bob your head, and then you suddenly get Eddie Van Halen rolling in with his guitar, and it's like, yeah, I think that's another song that, like Fred, you were like, define hair metal of the 80s. I would think that's kind of a, maybe not like the most idealistic one, but it involves a lot of instruments, so you can hear it very well. Should I play it?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, it was
That's the fun part.
it was good enough to be our, introduction to Little Nicky.
Yeah. Oh, that's how I honestly remember the song now. I mean,
Right.
Thanks to my childhood and being really engrossed in film.
And I mean, yeah,
Get in the flask.
get in the flat. But I think you think about that though too, right? And you think about a song like that, and you got David Lee Roth, and I think his vocals, I mean, and this is where vocalists really start letting it rip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's also something else that I've been thinking about too with hair metal as a style, and possibly how it lends itself into that arena rock and the ballad concept. The tempo isn't so fast that the crowd can't keep up.
Right.
The bass, the bass and the drums that kind of keep the rhythm of the song kind of have the same cadence. And I had a friend who always used to tell me in college, my friend Trey, he always used to say 80s drum. And what he meant was that like every 80s popular 80s song, mostly hair metal, have like the same kind of like drum kick tempo to them. And that like they're kind of just, it's the same tempo, the same kind of like beat. And they're the backbone of like most hair metal songs. And they allow the guitars to shine because the drums aren't going super fast or anything. And they allow the vocals to have these choruses that are simple and memorable to where you don't know the song. If you're at a live show, you don't even know the song when it starts, but after the first chorus, you know the chorus and you can sing along to it every time it comes back up.
Oh, yeah. I think that's absolutely true. It's definitely, yeah, you think about a lot of these things. And I was going back to the vocals, and the point I was going to make before even too is like we mentioned it, like Ronnie James Dio and like him bringing like that very like, you know, like holding those notes, and you hear so much of that in hair metal. Like you were talking about, like, would you necessarily like recognize a song until those vocals kick in and you're like, oh yeah, that's that. And like, I think even, I mean, the only band I think kind of breaks that trend outside of like an Aerosmith, where I feel like you recognize like the but that's again 70s, but is like Guns N' Roses, right? When you hear like the start of like Sweet Child of Mine or Welcome to the Jungle, and it's like
it's still high notes. There's a lot of high notes in hair metal that when I sit there and think, could I sing along to it? I have to like falsetto myself if I ever attempted karaoke.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing about singing along to these bands when you're in your car is they're hitting these notes. You got to turn that up because, you know, I can't compete.
It's interesting, right? Like they sing a lot, mostly male front lead singers and whatnot, singing really high notes, and then also being very, to quote an Aerosmith song, "Dude looks like a lady." You know, that was also like the style back then. They all had big, long hair, and they dressed in like, you know, really tight leather clothing and like crazy wild outfits and whatnot. So for the time, like that was like cool. That was what was in.
Yeah, it's like heavy denim, heavy leather, heavy metal. But
yeah, it's like hair metal is kind of like the majority of music embracing that kind of thing you're talking about with David Bowie, or I'd even go like the underground New York scene, like Lou Reed and all them.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of wearing what they want, wearing makeup, doing what they want. I think hair metal is kind of the ushering it into like the main stage.
Yes.
A little bit.
That's a great point because, yeah, I think it is as much about the look as it is the sound. And you definitely see it. It's like a lot of tight fitting clothing, like spandex specifically. Like we were talking about David Lee Roth before. Like that guy wears spandex pants up on stage, probably even still today.
And he does a lot of kicks. He does a lot of high kicks.
Love a kick.
He's like the Chun-Li of metal.
Yeah. Well, and these frontmen had so much energy too. Like he's jumping, in the air, like literally during the song "Jump." Like
cocaine's hell of a drug. So we're gonna quote the Chappelle Show again.
Yeah, do it.
That was it.
But it is. I mean, you think about it too. And then like Axl Rose specifically, you have somebody who is up there just like dancing and he's getting the crowd going and he is just constantly running up and down. And then he's still letting it just like completely belt out. And he's just, and he's got his bandana, right? That's his look. And everybody's got like their signature looks and their signature style. And then I think something that I did pin on, and we talked about Kiss before too. We talked about this off pod, but I think one of the things that really defined the Kiss hair metal era is they ditched the makeup, which is weird. You look at like an album cover from the 80s and you see Kiss without makeup, and they just look like a bunch of glam dudes. Like, they got real nice hair, like nice tweezed eyebrows and plucked eyelashes, and it's just, or plucked eyebrows and teased out eyelashes. You don't pluck your eyelashes. That'd be hurt.
No, that'd be painful.
The interesting thing about what you mention is that, to me, when I think of hair metal, I think of Kiss with the makeup. I don't think of them at all without the makeup. I think Kiss with the makeup is peak hair metal. Like, that is like where, like, that's the top of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And then everything else is like kind of like trying to reach that height.
Let's dig in a little bit on Kiss, because I think this is really, there's no band that I think understood the assignment more and probably influenced more of these bands than Kiss, right?
For sure.
They have big shows, lots of pyrotechnics, lots of makeup, lots of lights, lots of everything, style. That's like been their calling card since day one. I don't think hair metal exists without Kiss. I mean, yes, Alice Cooper did a lot of his own stuff, and certainly Aerosmith did a lot of their stuff. I think they influenced kind of what that style would look like. But Kiss is like, they understood this is a performance people are coming to see. People want to see us live, not listen to our records at home necessarily.
They understood the assignment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that also Gene Simmons having a very business-like mindset based on like what he does after Kiss. He seems like he's probably, like marketing's a big part of probably what also made them successful.
What differentiates them from everyone else.
Right, and how to sell it.
Yeah.
They have a unique brand, like, double down on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want you guys to hear the difference between, here's Kiss in this video from the 70s with the makeup on. Here's a song that they're playing.
So was that Love Gun?
There's Detroit Rock City.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Love Gun.
Now, yeah, so no, but Love Gun is kind of a similar thought, and it always makes me think of the movie Role Models.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just gonna say Love Gun. I called it sex metal earlier. Let's just call it what it is.
Well, all their songs are about sex.
They are.
Their band is called Kiss.
They absolutely are. But now, here is a video and a song from the 80s. I'm going to make a point off of this song, because this is the song that, to me, defines Kiss in the 80s.
This is 80s drum.
Right?
That's 80s drum.
Uh-huh. And then I'm going to try and show you guys the video while this is playing.
That's a hair metal video, 100%.
Looks like some women cleaning cars.
But look, Kiss is not wearing their typical black leather. They're wearing jeans, cut off shirts, leopard print boots. And then you get a chorus like this. And
it's very different. You're absolutely right. It's very different. And it does sound like 70s rock versus 80s rock.
Absolutely. And it's there is a clear separation in my mind between the Kiss that's that you're hearing in the 70s playing the big loud arena, and then you have them who are just embracing this era and wanting to look like Aerosmith.
I'm just gonna every song we sample from here on out that we're calling, for sure a hair metal song from the 80s. I'm gonna point out 80s drum, and
Good.
You see if it sounds exactly the same to you. It's the same tempo, the same it's almost meant for you to just headbang to it at the right tempo.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred, I don't know if this is where you're going to be for, but something I would also define a hair metal band or hair metal song is this a song that could be the backing track in a strip club both then and now?
There you go. That's what I wanted.
I've been waiting for this point.
It is back to our point about this being very like empowering, sexually charged music.
Sex metal.
Yeah.
Sex sells, baby. Gene Simmons was all about the marketing and what sells. I'm noticing a connection here. It's all connected.
Hell yeah.
But you listen to a song like that, right? And you can just instantly imagine a dancer like coming out and like I'm calling back to somebody. I remember we were listening to the song last weekend and they're like, coming up to the stage, Candy.
Wait, where were you last weekend?
I'm not telling.
I mean, okay. Like we've been dancing around, you know, like sampling some music and it's all good. I'm just saying, quintessential hair metal, sex metal song, Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Let's hear a little sampling of some sugar.
And like, tell me that this isn't the ultimate strip club song, but also the ultimate arena rock song.
Right here.
Step inside, walk this way, you and me, babe. Hey, hey! Yeah, we like a bomb, baby, come and get it on. Living like a lover with a red iPhone. Looking like a tramp, like a video bam. Demolition woman, can I be your man?
Can I just read the top YouTube comment on here? At my wedding, this song played when I took the garters off my wife's leg. It was one of the best moments of the night. These are the type of people that listen to this.
Pour Some Sugar on Me from the Coyote Ugly soundtrack.
Ooh.
Hey! I mean, some of the lyrics are like sticky sweet.
Yeah.
And the like. I know all the lyrics. I just don't like have them fully memorized.
Oh,
but
it's not hiding what it is at all. Like, these are non-subtle.
I'm fine with giving that number one, but I might throw Bad Medicine by Bon Jovi is pretty up there for if we're in the this is a good lap dance song section of the podcast.
I mean, it is definitely. I mean, what Bon Jovi song from the 80s is not a good lap dance song, right?
I agree.
But also, here's what Fred's talking about.
80s drum?
This is 80s drum. Yep. But also, yeah, this is a lap dance song for sure.
Yeah. Wait,
But you hear the 80s drum. If you just listen to the drum beat. Pour Some Sugar on Me has it. I think the tempo is slowed down, like they put it at half speed, and they emphasize the drum strikes, so they're like big and boomy. But it's the same. It's the same like cadence. This though, like 100%. Bad Medicine. That's 80s drum.
Yeah. And you can hear it every single time. It's the same calling cards. A lot of like big riffs that repeat, like bam, 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 bam. Like these guys are just making love to their instruments up on stage.
And I will say one band that they probably have plenty of songs that have this drum beat, but I will say Motley Crue, when I think of them, I do think of they're one of the hair metal bands that do a little more drumming. Tommy Lee has some faster paced drumming.
I mean, when I think of 80s drum, I think I imagine Tommy Lee.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of Motley Crue songs that are doing that. But I think of like Kickstart My Heart and songs like that. They have a lot of songs that are like
Dr. Feelgood.
Right.
Also sex metal.
But let's hear
Both of those songs, Kickstart and Dr. Feelgood.
Let's hear a little bit.
And girls, like Motley Crue is literally the definition of it.
Guys, we'll talk a little about Motley Crue because I'll give you guys a take after this. Josh, is there 80s drum here?
I believe it's 80s drum, but faster. It's like maybe 1.5 or 2 times the speed, but it's the same 80s drum. Whereas Pour Sugar on Me was like half speed. I think Kickstart My Heart is twice the speed. But if you go to Dr. Feelgood, for example, it's 80s drum, like the perfect cadence, the perfect tempo.
Tommy Lee is a very good drummer. He's been notorious as like one of the better drummers, probably from the 80s. That's not named Neil Peart, which is not a hair metal band.
Rush, not hair metal, the original progressive rock, progressive metal band.
There you go.
The Goats. There's only 3 members. How do they do it? That's another time, another podcast.
Yeah.
The prog rock app.
The Rush episode, all Rush all the time.
Listen, I've had requests. I can't say that they haven't come up. But it is interesting because I think Motley Crue was an early like hair metal band, because I don't think they quite like the hair metal isn't what it is without Motley Crue. I think they kind of define the era in a way that I think Van Halen and Guns N' Roses ran because they walked.
Yeah.
They're also like they're showing the lifestyle, I feel like, based on watching The Dirt on Netflix and just like hearing about Motley Crue. I feel like there was news reports about them like really get into the lifestyle of like the hair metal band and hearing about all the shenanigans they were getting into. And I feel like they kind of give that like wild party boy vibe that I'm sure most of these hair metal bands like had, but they were kind of like, this is like enemy number 1 of that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Did you watch that biopic on Netflix?
I did.
Me too.
It's not very good, but it's worth watching. Like it's kind of, that's like my thing. Like if you like metal, you should watch it, but it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how I define Motley Crue in general as a band. If you like metal, Motley Crue's not good, but it's worth listening to.
Absolutely. And I think I'll make this statement. While I think like Bon Jovi, Van Halen, Guns N' Roses persevered as sort of like defining hair metal for the generations to come, I do think Motley Crue has argument for having the biggest peak of all of them. And that's hard to say because obviously Guns N' Roses and Van Halen were huge.
And Kiss.
But I mean, can you just even looking back and here's my personal experience I'll share with you guys. I saw Motley Crue when they reunited in 2005, and it was in Milwaukee. I went to the show.
Was it Summerfest?
It was not. It was at the former arena, the Bradley Center.
Just them?
Just them.
No?
Nobody opened?
No opener.
Interesting. Well, they have a big discography, I guess.
They do. I mean, did they have an opener? They might have had like an opener. I think we missed them. But it was somebody not notable. But we saw them together, like, because it was like their first reunion in 20 years or whatever it was. And I took my buddy there, and the place was full to the brim. And I'd rarely seen an arena. I saw U2 there, and that wasn't even filled up. I don't feel they had to close off a section. This was, every seat was filled. And I was like, this is crazy. And everybody there was.
Every seat in the Bradley Center arena was full for a hair metal / arena rock band.
Mm-hmm. But man, we were outaged by probably about 15 years all around.
That checks out.
Absolutely. I was 18 at the time, and I am like, my buddy and I went, and I'm like, man, we're the youngest people here by at least a decade. Like, it's crazy.
Was it good?
It was enjoyable.
There was a hesitation there.
Let's talk a little about hair metal, guys. Let's talk a little about hair metal.
Let's dig in.
Let's get real for a second.
Let's peel back the layers here. It's kind of like what I said. Like, Motley Crue's not good, but if you like metal and rock, it's worth listening to.
I do think there are diminishing returns on hair metal once you get past like their 1 or 2 big songs for a few bands.
100%. Yeah. I mean, some of these hair metal bands are like one-hit wonder bands, and the rest of the discography is like not good,
hot garbage.
Yeah, not good to hot garbage. There's a spectrum there.
Like you have Bon Jovi, you have Kiss, you have Motley Crue, you have Van Halen, you have Guns N' Roses. I think they have deep catalogs. And I think probably Guns N' Roses has the argument for being the most inventive, potentially.
Well, they also have like a almost perfect like first album too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not something I've looked into. And I know I've talked about that in both the previous episodes for new metal and metalcore, is like what bands were like a one-hit wonder versus what bands had like really good full discographies of music in those genres. And hair metal, I think it's probably pretty rare to find a full album that slaps cover to cover.
Mm-hmm. Like Van Halen definitely does, but what
Van Halen does for sure.
Van Halen is probably the one that fits the hair metal definition the most with the most bangers, I would say.
Right. But what do Guns N' Roses, Van Halen, Motley Crue, all those bands have in common? They have almost
bandanas.
Well, yes, they have
Bandanas, big hair,
but
good guitars, good singers,
very good guitars, very good, like generational talent too. Axl Rose, David Lee Roth, even if Sammy Hagar is they're very good singers.
Van Hagar.
Van Hagar. We'll get to Van Hagar.
Which I'm going to say, I don't know who did what in Van Halen. I know Van Halen is the guitarist, and I know there was 6 different singers.
Rest in power.
I think Eddie Van Halen and Slash are like 2 arguments for 2 top 5
like
guitarists?
Greatest guitarists.
10 for sure. I think
Eddie was actually like officially rated the 4th greatest guitarist of all time.
And okay, we got to play some more Van Halen because there is one specific song and it's not a super popular one, but it's
Is
usually
it from the hair metal era? Because
Van
Halen has a deep discography.
They do, but there's one.
Because I told you before that we started recording. I got one that's like, ooh,
it's like ooh. I mean, here's what I've got here for you guys. Something that is interesting is that Van Halen first really got going in 1978, and their first self-titled album had the song Eruption that led into a much popular one. And you guys got to hear this because you'll recognize what this leads into right afterward. And it's, again, a situation of after the opening comes, you'll recognize the chords. So on the radio, they usually start with this song and then it kicks right away to the next track. It's one of those, they always play them together, right?
Yep. Because it's just like a full intro solo kind of thing where Eddie's just riffing.
Yep.
Tapping like crazy. You really got me now.
You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
It's a real like 60s song with like a metal overlay, isn't it?
I agree with you. It gives me that like 60s, 70s rock, like classic
Like
rock
The Who.
vibe, like The Who, Led Zeppelin, and similar acts from that era.
Well, You Really Got Me is originally by the Kinks.
Maybe that's why. That's why.
It's a cover. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
gee.
So that Eruption is kind of just Eddie Van Halen just showing off of his
Literally,
skills.
like
Shredded.
erupting like molten lava, like a volcano on
Yeah.
his guitar.
And that song is double long. I only played, that was like the abridged version of his little opening before it gets to You Really Got Me. And yeah, I mean, that's, again, 1978. They're throwing it back to, I mean, some of the godfathers of rock and roll with Kinks, right? Like they influenced so many people.
Now that you mention it, my brain is like, yeah, you've heard all these versions of this song before.
It's a great tune though. And I just think when you have generational talent in your band, you know, we talked about Tommy Lee as a drummer. We talked about, you know, even just like Kiss. I think they have, I mean, do they have one that's just a talented performer? Like, is Gene Simmons one of the best bassists? I don't know.
Kiss? I don't think Kiss has like a particularly of note, strikingly talented artist. I think it's what Fred was talking about earlier with like, there is a brand, there is a style here that is evocative, powerful, and unlike anything anybody had seen. And they just doubled down on that. And it was like the full package. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a couple other bands that did that to a like lesser extent, where it's like they were strong bands, but nobody really knows them for any one individual talent on the band.
Right.
You know?
And I think that's something that kind of defines hair metal. Why there are like various degrees of talent. You have like one band, like I've gone and seen some of these bands at Summerfest. Have you guys seen these bands? I know I just talked about Motley Crue. What about you guys? Who have you seen?
I've seen Def Leppard live at Summerfest, open for Journey. I went to see Journey. This was 2018.
Sure.
I think. Maybe 2019. Mm-hmm. They were playing at the headliner, the AmFam Amphitheater one night. I have loved Journey since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go. I went by myself. Def Leppard was opening. And at that point in my life, I was like, I've heard of Def Leppard. I know Pour Some Sugar on Me. Like, that's the only song I knew by name by that band. And I didn't care. I left that show that night, just mind blown that Def Leppard in 2018 or 2019 played a better live show than Journey did. And I was like blown away. And I was like, whoa, maybe I've slept. I know it's like another Motley Crue style band, but maybe I've slept on them.
Yeah.
They crushed it. Like, they were phenomenal live. And I know that's not the case for Motley Crue these days based on word of mouth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Journey's without their lead singer now. Steve Perry hasn't been with them since the
Sure. And Perry was phenomenal. However, the singer that they got, I mean, there's a whole documentary on that, vocalizes like the same as Steve Perry.
And I watched their Lollapalooza live like 2 years ago when they streamed it all on Hulu.
Yeah.
And he was great. Like
the singer's phenomenal. That wasn't why the band was, just the show, the presence, the energy live. Like, they didn't play poorly or anything like that. He wasn't a poor vocalist. He was phenomenal. He sounded just like Steve Perry. And apparently he was a karaoke singer in the Philippines.
Oh, that's funny.
They found him like on YouTube from karaoke videos on YouTube and then like brought him in. Crazy thing. Check out the documentary. But like, they're just, their energy, their showmanship was not to the same level as Def Leppard. Like, live in 2018, like, Def Leppard felt like they hadn't lost a step at all.
And is Def Leppard the band where the drummer has like an arm missing?
Correct.
Which that's just crazy to think about. I remember watching that in like a class at school. Mm-hmm. I think it was like a science class, and they were just talking about whatever. And that was like in a documentary we watched.
Had an accident at some point, lost an arm, continued to play and rock on, and that's wild.
Yeah, for sure. He has like a drum, like a floor setup that's like hitting all the beats for the other arm, which is
and they are one of the handful of bands of this era that are British. Mm-hmm. And they're proud of it. They have like the Union Jack flag like on the drum set and everything. They don't sound British from like the vocalist, like he doesn't have an accent or anything, but there's a handful of artists who were like British of that era that kind of like were blending in with American rock.
Man.
But that I highly recommend. I don't know if they're still touring now in 2024, but man, it completely changed my perspective, like, on that band.
I've heard Def Leppard puts on a great show. I seen Journey as well years and years ago when they had that karaoke singer. And I mean, he's good. I saw him at a county fair. It was fine. Like, again, but they're not a hair metal band. I think the only other hair metal band that I don't even know if there is any other ones on this list. A lot of them were like close misses. Like, Kiss came, and then I think I had to miss that show for some reason. Van Halen was going to reunite, come to Milwaukee. I remember my dad and I had it lined up. We were going to go see them with David Lee Roth back. Like, the whole band was together. They had Eddie Van Halen went to rehab like 2 weeks before the show.
So, all right. I also saw Van Halen in like 2012 in that reunion tour with David Lee Roth.
Really?
I saw the last show they did on the tour before Eddie and David got into a fight and like they canceled the rest of the tour. It was in Orlando, Florida. They had Kool and the Gang open for them.
That's fun.
Yeah.
How was it?
Oh, it was amazing. It was also Eddie. I think that was the debut tour where Eddie featured his son Wolfgang
Oh, sure.
playing guitar with the band. And like his son is probably younger than us. Like he's probably early 30s. So he's like a teenager at the time playing with them and did great. They sounded great. They played all their hits great. David Lee Roth was still doing his kicks and everything. Like on stage, his vocals sounded good. It didn't feel like hair metal though, like presenting it, because they were all older. They didn't have like the flash, the style, the theatrics.
Right.
It just felt like, oh, I'm seeing Van Halen, like in their, like heyday, or like in past their heyday, past their prime. And it was great, but it was also wild. Like I appreciated it in the moment because I always grew up loving them.
Yeah.
But it was not like it didn't have a hair metal vibe.
I could see that, but that's interesting. Man, I'm jealous you got to go to that show on that tour because, I was so bummed when it got canceled. And I was like, well, I guess. And then years later, Eddie Van Halen died. So then it's like, well, that's kind of the end. Like, without Van Halen, what's the point? Right. It's like, I mean, he has his brother who was the drummer, I think, but still, it's just not the same. Not the same.
It's not what you want.
Yeah, you want to see, which like Eddie Van Halen, I mean, so big at the time. He's plays the guitar solo on Beat It, Michael Jackson's song. Like that's the type of level of huge he was that people recognize his talent. I think Slash had a couple cameos too, right? What was that?
For sure.
What was the band that was like Guns N' Roses?
Velvet Revolver.
Velvet Revolver.
Right. It was.
And every time I'm falling down.
That was Slash and Scott Weiland.
Yeah.
And Scott Weiland, lead singer at Stone Temple Pilots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think I saw Stone Temple Pilots with Scott Weiland, but I did not see Velvet Revolver.
Well, you saw the greater of those two.
Probably.
I saw Velvet Revolver once at a concert festival in Orlando when I was in high school or college, and they were not good.
I bet. But I think it's something to be said that all these bands are still performing. And there's one thing we really haven't hit on here yet, guys. And I know we're deep into this episode a little bit, but there's one thing that hair metal has going for it. As much as they like to get big and really rock it and bring the speed up, they also like to bring it down a tick. And something that really defines, I think, hair metal, or at least according to these fine music scholars online, is the ballad.
Ooh, the ballad.
It's these hair metal ballads, kind of like Here I Go Again on My Own, right? But those certainly aren't the only ones. What are the ballads that you guys know? And this, I think, kind of defines a lot of these bands, right?
I have one that I like to listen to a lot. It's probably the hair metal adjacent, depending how you want to see it, song I listen to the most, which is I love a little Skid Row, I Remember.
Oh,
And
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's
Hear it.
I like hair metal songs, like ballads, where they'll work in some acoustic guitar into it, and then they'll come at you with the like traditional hair metal electric.
So should we each do like our like favorite ballad of the hair metal ballads?
I mean, we could do it. Why not?
Yeah, let's
'Cause
do it.
I think it is something that you do have these bands that are up there hard rock and they're jumping around, and then they'll bring it down for like one really big song where everybody can get in. Like, all right, I see everybody out there tonight, and I see you guys here, and you're loving it. We're gonna play this one because we know you love it. You're gonna sing it with us. Let's go.
Is this the origination of pulling the lighter out for the song
I feel so.
in the concert?
Maybe. You might have to argue with Led Zeppelin playing like Stairway or something like that.
Yeah, that's
But-
true.
But
With that, I hope I have a Zippo lighter. That's going to hurt my thumb after a while.
let's listen to some Skid Row. Kind of like you mentioned, that acoustic guitar right over here.
Yeah.
Woke up to the sound of pouring rain. The wind would whisper and I think of you. And all the tears you cry, they call my name.
it's just I love the little like tease of like the chorus. I know we didn't get there.
Yeah, it's all good to me.
But it's just
For me, you had the part which is like what makes the song great is just like that light acoustic and then the drums and the electric coming over, and like especially if you're like in your car driving and just fills the vehicle with 80s metal, and it just feels so great.
yeah. It's I mean, Skid Row I think is such an interesting band because they're not the first band I think a lot of people mention with hair metal. But they are somebody that it's like, oh yeah, they got at least one really, really good song. And I think that's kind of a lot of these bands have made their bread and butter off like, we're going to get one to chart and get it on the radio.
Right. Like I feel Skid Row is not someone I would seek out to see, but man, that's like a great 4:00 Summerfest show.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Yeah, it is.
My buddy knows over here. Feel Josh is the king of the 4:00
Oh, you know it, man.
show.
The only bands I care to see at Summerfest these days are playing 4 or 6 o'clock.
Hell yeah.
What about you, Josh? What's a ballad that you know?
So this is going to be out of left field. This is going to be a take, and I think it's a sexy take to go on with the sex metal. Heart, These Dreams.
Ooh.
Tommy, you had that queued up right away. You knew.
Sometimes I have a feeling.
These 80s synth keyboards too.
Hell yeah.
Spare a little candle, save some light for me. Figures up ahead, moving in the trees. White skin in linen, perfume on my wrist. And the full moon that hangs over these dreams in the mist. These dreams go on when I close my eyes. Every second of the night, I live another.
Hell fucking yeah.
I was vibing over here.
I was too.
Which, like, let's talk a little about Heart, because I wouldn't have pinned Heart as necessarily a hair metal band, but they absolutely adapted to the era. And I would, because like you go through the lists, and boy,
Barracuda to that.
you can tell there were some dudes making these top bands of hair metal lists, because I'm like, like you're trying to pretend that there aren't like women who are doing this. And yeah, Heart absolutely. And going from, like Crazy on You is very much a song of the 70s, that bow, right, to like doing a song like that.
Yeah. And when you watch the music videos too, the music videos, like the style changes completely from like literally how their hair is like styled, the outfits, just the way they shoot the music video.
Yeah.
There like you were showing us the Kiss music video earlier, and you're like, is this not a hair metal music video? And 100% was. Like, there's a music video style to hair metal too.
I love some ladies that rock. I don't know about you guys.
You know, I'm going to say it here. I love some ladies that rock too.
Yeah.
I love some ladies. If they rock, it's a bonus.
But I think the 80s might be one of my favorite eras for women bands, like Pat Benatar. And I mean, these aren't even all hair metal bands, but like, the Bangles and like the Go-Go's. Like, I'll listen to all that because those songs kind of hit. And then because I'm like, there's really no other era where you get a lot of female bands like this that really are out there, other than maybe like the late aughts, and you have like the Yeah Yeahs, like, or that has just one lead singer, right?
Evanescence and Flyleaf.
There you go.
Well, nowadays we got Hailstorm, I guess.
That's true.
Who does the till now I only got by on my own. I never really cared until I met you.
Oh, man.
And then it chills me to the bone.
I don't know, but I want you to keep singing.
How do I? Because I don't know the words. It's not great. Ready to hold on.
Yeah, I would have to put you into SoundCloud or something like that. Like, do a little song.
Hey, I'll work on it if you want to.
Hey, Freddie, I hope you sing that at karaoke the next time we go out.
Oh, God. There's the part in that song where she does, like, scream belts, though, is the problem.
If you do that one, I'll do hearts.
Wait a
and
minute.
screams.
Wait a minute. Fred, is the song you're thinking of?
Yeah.
You're gonna laugh. Is this it?
Yeah.
You know what band this is?
Yeah, I know what band it is. I sound like an idiot.
I still don't know what band it is.
Look inside yourself. Look at a very specific organ that we may have just talked about. Heart. Yeah, we just talk about how we love ladies so much. We know all the different music. I'm going to just name the same band again.
All right.
And the night goes by so very slow.
We gotta get to the.
I know. If
the
we
part.
talk over it, it's legal. We can talk.
Yeah.
But I think it
fair
goes
use,
down
Fair
for a
use,
second.
BB. We're making it better. We're adding
Okay,
commentary.
here we go.
Till now, I always got by on my own. I never really cared until I met you.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a real
Beautiful.
That's a real Fred parked outside a Taco Bell at 9:30 at night,
Yes.
just singing into like my Mountain Dew.
80s heart's better than 70s heart. I'm just saying.
Whoa. Okay, dude.
Hot take.
Oh, these guys are taking their shirts off. They're about to fight.
Oh boy. You want to talk about Magic Man?
You want to sing that one at karaoke? We'll each do a heart song at karaoke. You can do that one. Fred will do that one, and I'll do the other one.
I can't hit the notes that they're hitting in Heart. That's the problem. Like,
None of us can. That's why it'll be great.
but it's got a hell of. I mean, Crazy on You's got one of the best riffs. It is interesting though to talk about the fact that you have a lot of men and people who identify as men very much dolling themselves up very effeminately in this era. And like, it's just interesting then, yeah, that women are so underrepresented then in this genre. Like
Are there any others besides heart?
I mean, you're,
Brandy Carlisle considered
I don't know. And like, that's kind of the issue. I was even trying to look like
I mean, women are underrepresented in probably most rock and roll.
women are underrepresented in music in general. Let's just call it what it is. Like,
I mean, maybe not in like pop music, but rock and roll.
But, yeah.
for sure.
it's
Like
a
you're
shame.
gonna like Taylor Swift, Beyonce, like some of the top artists in music of the last like 20 years. But rock and roll though, especially all women or predominantly women bands in rock and roll, very underrepresented.
Yeah, tell me if you've heard of half of these bands, and maybe this is part of the problem, right? It's Vixen, Warlock, Cycle Sluts from Hell, which is a great name for a band.
I don't know. That sounds more like one of those weird 80s like C grade like semi porno movies.
Yeah. They list the Bengals as a hair metal band. I would argue against that.
that's like 80s pop, I thought.
Like Walk Like an Egyptian does not sing to me.
That's not hair metal.
That's not hair metal.
That's like 90s, like I don't know, 90s.
It's
something.
a great ass song, but it's not
Almost
the-
like 90s new wave. I don't know.
Yeah. Or like Eternal Flame, which is a great ballad on its own. Maybe that is. What do you guys think? What's the verdict here? Do I need to play Eternal Flame?
That the is this burning in the eternal flame?
Close your eyes. Give me your hand. Can you feel my heart beating? Do you understand? Do you feel the same? Or am I only dreaming?
I'm just letting y'all cook right now.
An eternal flame. I might give that one to them. Maybe they're onto something.
I think we took a detour, but I like it.
I like it. You know what? It's a worthwhile detour because it's worthwhile talking about how over masculine this, or masculine. Again, it's like, it's such a weird thing because it's a lot of androgynous looks. And we talked about Dee Snider already going straight out in drag. And like, and I think he's been a biggest defender. I think at first when he was doing like those I Love the 80s, like, you know, shows on VH1, he's like, oh, I'm so ashamed. But now he kind of embraces it again. He's like, yeah, like, what was the problem? Like, and there shouldn't be a problem with that.
It was probably a result of the times and the culture and the era changing, that like it was made to like make him feel guilty about it. And he probably had an immediate reaction of like, oh, I guess I kind of do feel bad about that. But then he had some time to process and was like, well, I never had any bad intent. I was actually doing it in full support and like solidarity.
Right.
You know, and F all that, like I am going to stand my ground and say like this is in full support and solidarity of that,
right,
of that form of expression and people being who they want to be,
right. And
he stands by that today in 2024.
Yeah,
very outspoken, very strong advocate. I have a lot of respect for Dee Snider.
Absolutely. Listen, he's not necessarily like going to go on RuPaul's Drag Race or anything like that, but he definitely is not going to like close the door on them. He's going to be like, no, y'all should watch that. You all guys should support drag shows and drag queens. So
yeah, I don't think he would go on it, but I think he would absolutely 100% support. And like if they asked him to be a producer, he would totally do it.
For sure.
All that kind of stuff.
For sure. But it's just interesting that you do get that. But then you do get, I mean, like I said, you get
Motley Crue singing "Girls, Girls, Girls."
There's some misogynist shit in there.
Yeah. My introduction to that song was the India in the Cupboard movie.
Oh my god,
that's in that movie.
Yeah, they're like the kids are staying up late and the cowboy's watching it, and he's like, "This is disrespectful to women."
John Wayne and kids. Why are they doing that? But before we get to our next segment,
wait,
guys.
Tom, you never shared your favorite ballad.
Oh, it's the perfect segue because I wanted to talk about a little more about a band that we didn't spend a lot of time on. I've name dropped them quite a few times already. But guys, Guns N' Roses is, I mean, one of the biggest hair metal bands.
They are.
They have maybe,
and they have multiple ballads.
Arguably the best vocalist of the era. And I think that's something that like Axl can just hit all these ranges, and it's just, and like I said, they're one of the most inventive bands. They're one of the most just like innovative in terms of what they were doing. Their songs don't really sound like a lot of the other hair metal bands of the 80s. And I feel like, unfortunately, or fortunately, one of their best ballads is a cover, and I'm going to play a little bit for you.
I was wondering which one you were going with.
Yeah, they have a few.
But of course, I'm talking about the song Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Mama, take this badge from me.
I love this rendition.
I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see.
And I like that they overlaid Axl's vocals on the recorded track.
Feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knocking on heaven's door. Hey, 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 yeah. Knocking on heaven's door.
It's just I think it's interesting that they take a song that wasn't necessarily a ballad, even when it came out, right? I think it was just sort of Bob Dylan just, you know, doing this war protest song and making it, and then they're just like, you know what, we're gonna just sing this and we're gonna make it something different and turn it into an 80s ballad. And I love it. I don't know. It's just it hits right here in my heart.
It does hit. Slaps.
Yeah, I was just
a gentle slap though.
I was really happy you weren't going to play November Rain. I like November Rain fine, but it's not one that like hits the sweet spot for me like that or Patience.
Yeah. I don't love November Rain. That's maybe the one GNR song I'm like lukewarm on. Mm-hmm. But the rest of them, I'm like, you throw on a little GNR any time of day, I'm going to get into it. And there was another band that, boy, I really considered going and seeing, but the ticket prices were pretty outrageous.
Yeah, and Axl sounds a bit rough these days from like videos I've seen. You know, Slash has still got it, but
I was expecting Sweet Child of Mine, to be honest. So
Is Sweet Child of Mine a ballad, though?
I would count it as about as much as I would Stairway to Heaven, because it kind of has like a slowish, but then it kind of gets into like that fast metal.
Is Stairway to Heaven a ballad? Oh, here we go. We're
are
defining.
we going back to the what constitutes pulling out your Zippo lighter concert?
I mean, if the strip club test is part of hair metal,
The strip club test.
then
Heard it here first, folks.
I guess Sweet Child of Mine, I would not light my lighter for.
because I think you also have weird ass songs like Photograph that people would take out their lighter for.
Nickelback?
Like a Nickelback. Like, look at this photograph.
Are you sure they're taking out their lighter or are they taking out photographs?
Well, they're probably taking a lighter, a gas of gasoline, just because they don't want to hear it anymore.
Nowadays, they're pulling out their phones, which have both photographs and lights.
Yes, true.
Well, I used to have the Zippo app where you could flick open and
Right, everyone uses the phone instead of a lighter nowadays.
That is funny. Which I remember, guys, I'm old enough. I remember going to concerts and literally bringing a Zippo lighter specifically to wave it during a song. Not because I was a smoker or anything. I just wanted to have a lighter to hold out and wave. That's one of my first Summerfest experiences years ago.
All right.
I don't know if I've ever done that. Maybe at the
I've
Bone
not
Thugs
brought a
concert.
lighter just for that experience. No. I've never carried a lighter in my pocket. I usually have one like in the junk drawer.
Yeah.
That's about it.
But then it's nice because then if you had cute girls who were like, hey, you got a lighter? I do.
I guess I'm revealing a lot about myself, never carrying a lighter in my pocket.
This is just the kind of guy I was when I was 16 or whatever.
Resourceful.
But I guess, guys, this is something I did want to kind of get into as well, and using that as a segue. I'm talking about our Show Me the Franchise segment, and I want you guys maybe to show me this franchise with hair metal. And I guess it's hard to do a coulda, woulda, shoulda with regard to this, because what is there really like that you would want to have seen different? But maybe there are bands that you would still want to see if you had a chance to, or maybe a band that when they were together, like a Van Halen with Eddie Van Halen, since Josh was the only one who got to see it, that you would want to have seen back when they were in their like heyday. Josh, you want to kick us off?
Ooh. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, we've been talking about how a lot of these like classic pinnacle hair metal bands have not stood the test of time, like and aren't necessarily quote unquote good live anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, getting to see in their prime a Guns N' Roses or a Motley Crue would have been really cool. Heart would have been also awesome because, you know, as we just gave a lot of love to Heart in the last segment, that would have been neat. But I mean, I was very fortunate in that I got to see both Van Halen and Def Leppard in the twilight era of their band careers, and they were both still really rock solid. Unfortunately, I guess I'm disappointed that I'll never get to see Eddie play again. And that's going to be tough because he's one of my all-time favorite guitarists too.
Yeah.
I'm happy that I got to see Van Halen with David Lee Roth as opposed to Van Hagar with Sammy Hagar. Nothing against Sammy. I like David Lee Roth better.
Sure.
But I mean, like I said earlier, Def Leppard was such a surprise, a pleasant surprise and a revelation. So, I mean, if I can see them again, if they're still going to be touring and whatnot, I would expect like they're still going to put on a great show. I guess disappointed I never got to see Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, and maybe Kiss in their primes because they're all, you know, great.
Yeah.
And they had multiple great songs for what they were. I say great loosely because I don't think Motley Crue's a great band, but in their prime for what hair metal is, they were great.
Probably. They would have been a lot of fun to see. I think it's funny. I did want to, before I pass it off to you, Fred, and get your take, I did want to make a note on like Van Hagar versus Van Halen because we didn't get into that. I have the hot take or the hot opinion of I don't pick a side. I kind of like both. And I've always kind of been like that with music. People are like, are you Beatles or Rolling Stones? It's like, I like both. Are you Backstreet Boys or NSYNC? I like both. Like they're...
Yeah, you do.
Why do I have to pick? why do I have to pick? Like, just give me a little slice of this when I'm in the mood for that, and when I'm giving a little slice of that when I'm in the mood for this.
What's like the most popular Van Halen song where Sammy Hagar's singing?
Right now?
Just in general,
Maybe.
overall.
That was a who's on first situation. Josh answered right now is the song.
Oh, it is? How does it go?
Right now. Ow!
They all kind of go like that, though.
Yeah, that's Van Hagar.
Because, like, when I hear Van Halen, I think what David Lee Roth sounds like.
Yeah,
he's like the, ooh, I'm singing, ah, and then he does like some of that.
Sammy Hagar has a higher pitched voice.
Okay.
Can I play one of the songs that I think might be well known to us specifically? Because I know Right Now is a popular song with Van Hagar, but this one specifically, I want to see if you guys recognize it. Just I gotta play it.
World turns black and white. Pictures in an empty room. Your love starts falling down. Better change your tune. Yeah, you reach for the golden ring. Reach for the sky. Baby, just spread your wings. And get higher and higher. Straight up we'll fly.
So, like, good, but more one note, maybe. If you're
Yeah.
going to be super critical, I would say.
Yes. Do you know what that's from? It's a movie.
Oh, no, I just know it from being a song.
That is the end credits song or the final song in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. So I was like,
What?
After they defeat Ivan Ooze?
yeah, dude. The soundtrack's kind of good. When they're like skydiving and stuff, they're playing Higher Ground by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I gotta rewatch that.
You need to look up the album. You don't need to watch it. It ages.
I want to watch it.
Watch it.
It ages. The CGI in there ages.
It does.
I remember the CGI is
Horrible.
bad. I remember the last time I watched it.
But
I was in college. It was 2007.
that was about the time I watched it too, and I think I even recognized that. I was like, "Wow, 10 years later, this is not aged well."
And if your parents try to stop you, you throw it in their faces.
Ah, what's that smell? Teenagers.
We'll have Josh back on to cover the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie.
That was clearly we do have a Power Rangers episode in us, but I just remember watching that and being so blown away by the soundtrack. There's a couple bangers in there outside of the Power Rangers theme, but yeah, I mean, that's Van Hagar to me. I think of that song first and foremost. Right Now is also a great song. It's your tomorrow. But I like Sammy Hagar's range a little bit. It's just
He's got a higher pitch than David Lee Roth. The interesting thing is, like, for the longest time, I always like had it wrong, and I don't know why. But I had this like in my head, Van Halen transition from like the insane guitar riffs to like the synth keyboard heavy dominated songs.
Right.
And I always like landmarked that with the milestone of David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar.
Yep.
And that's wrong, because if I did that, then I assume that Jump, one of their biggest songs ever, is a Van Hagar song, and it's not. That's still David Lee Roth, but that's like the start of Van Halen going into the keyboard synth.
it's kind of like Kiss with and without the makeup.
Whoa, full circle.
Hey, Fred, show me the franchise. What have you got for anything that you would want to have seen, or just a band you would have wanted to have seen? What do you think?
So I will say this before I say a band. Show me the franchise would be, and I'm sure there was this, but it wasn't anything that was popular enough to like have me know it. Would be like a Traveling Wilburys-esque like super group. You know, get all the people who can still cook together. Which I'm looking at you. I'm sure there are.
I mean, we talked about Velvet Revolver.
But that's not a bunch of hair metal people getting together and
it
making
was cross
Right.
genre, because it was Slash, hair metal guitarist, with Scott Weiland, grunge frontman, and it was a bad band.
Right. I want
Okay, what about
the cream of the crop getting together to do a throwback to 80s hair.
All right.
wasn't Tommy Lee a part of something?
Well, he's part of Jane's Addiction, but that wasn't really a super band.
No, I was thinking something else. Oh, it was the reality show Rockstar Supernova. Oops.
So let me challenge you guys with this. Build your super band from hair metal bands. So you got a vocalist, guitarist, bassist, drummer.
I know I want Slash and I want David Lee Roth.
Okay.
And I'll take Tommy Lee on the drums.
Oh.
And then Gene Simmons on bass, but he only plays bass, which is just funny.
I mean, I like it. Josh, you got an answer there?
Eddie Van Halen on guitars, of like for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know what? I'm gonna go with the drummer of Def Leppard, the dude with one
there
arm,
you go.
because I mean, kudos to that dude.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. That's unique. And then front man, this is tough. You know what? F it. I'm going with the lead singers of Heart.
Oh.
I don't even know their names, but we're gonna get the only notable hair metal female vocalists. If like I think it's one or two of them, we're gonna get them in there.
Upper and lower aorta.
And then on bass, we're getting Geddy Lee from Rush, who can also do backing vocals.
There you go.
I thought we ruled Rush as a progressive rock
They
band
are.
and
I think
not a hair metal band, so you can't have them.
What?
Come on.
And of course, the lead singers of Heart are Ann Wilson and Nancy Wilson,
Thank you.
but not to be confused with Wilson Phillips. That's a different band. Not Brian Wilson's kids.
Or Wilson the volleyball.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
to be confused with that
Yeah.
either. We don't have volleyballs on there.
That's a real Frankenstein's monster band that I just created.
Yeah, I guess I like the way you guys went with both your bands. I don't think I could come up with anything unique other than I might sub in like Steven Tyler on lead singer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you'd want Axl Rose. I thought that would be.
I mean, Axel would probably be my number one, but like just to be different, I feel like Steven Tyler would be a lot of fun. Like just because he's got that, I don't know, he's got that melodic just way he sings, and I don't know. And yeah, I think you guys hit it though. Who are you else are you gonna pick at guitar? You know, Gene on bass. It sounds good.
And I'd just reverberate if I could see it'd be Guns N' Roses or Van Halen. Like that's what I would choose to see.
Yeah, I think seeing Guns N' Roses would have been big. I still think I would have loved to seen Kiss. And you know what? Here's another one. And I don't know if he's touring at all anymore either. I would have loved to see Alice Cooper. And I think he's kind of all about his radio DJ, like on XM radio. And
They'll
all
still
that now.
tour though.
Yeah, which I think he'd be a lot of fun because one, his 70s songs are great, but he also has a great 80s song too. And man, it's just, But maybe that's our good segue to get to our power rankings this week, guys, and talk about who are the top 3 bands that you would rank from the glam metal, hair metal era, since we have so clearly defined it.
Have we clearly defined it?
I don't know, but have we covered everybody we should be talking about? I know we have talked about a lot of different bands, but we've talked about,
There's a lot of those ones that were kind of like on the periphery, like Dokken and like Poison, probably not periphery. Poison was a bigger deal, but I had never really.
Thank you for reminding me,
Yeah,
Josh.
we
because
forgot about Poison, which is,
we forgot about Poison. But we also did forget about Dokken, which is the one band I always thought of when I talked to Fred because it sounds like Dakin.
and I appreciate any plays because I get royalties.
All right, so
yeah.
we got to give one. This is Dokken because I have mentioned this at least 3 times on this podcast in its lifetime.
In my dreams, it's still the same. Your love is strong, it still remains.
That 80s drum, Josh.
Less pronounced 80s drum, but it's still there.
Fred, that's what I've been referencing. This is finally the episode relevant to that band, Fred Dokken.
Yep, I feel we'll get in there if we do like a Nightmare on Elm Street. We'll get more Doc and Talk.
We did do a Dokken song. You're right, but we completed the circle. Those are like their two biggest ones. That and Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors, hell yeah.
That was a great song.
There's also like Warrant. There's Winger, as made famous by Beavis and Butthead, sort of.
I thought you were gonna say Deborah Winger.
Oh, not quite. I mean, just because the one guy on Beavis and Butthead wore the shirt that said Winger. It's the only reason I know that band exists. Otherwise, I'd be like, oh, it's that one song I heard on the radio when I was 4. Tom's laughing now.
It was a good bit. But we did, yeah. Poison is not one of my favorites, but I will say when we talked about ballads, I did think of them because they've got another acoustic over like the 80s hair metal electric with every rose has its thorn. I'll keep singing while he's laughing now. Every night has his stone.
Okay, I'm back. What is Deborah Winger known for?
Is it Dharma and Greg?
Oh, maybe. God, that just caught me off guard.
So, I mean, there's a bunch though that are in this periphery.
Right, terms of endearment and officer and
We've also got King Cobra, who did the theme song to the legendary B movie version of Top Gun, Iron Eagle.
Oh, okay.
Never Say Die, Iron Eagle by King Cobra, along with another like hit one that they had called Hunger. There's a band that I had literally never heard of, and I had never heard this song, but as we were formulating the playlist, it kept coming up, and I listened to it. I was like, this thing slaps. This song is like fire. And it's by a band called Hurricane, and the song is called I'm On To You. Don't know the song like lyrically or anything, but like it slaps. It grooves. So if you want to play a deep cut sample, Hurricane, I'm On To You.
I thought hurricane season was over.
It's actually just about to begin. I learned this. It starts June 1st. This video, I don't know, you guys can't see it great. It looks like the Lick It Up video.
80s drum.
So you're telling me if I just learn one drum like line, like I can,
You got to get your fills down though. If you can do fills and that beat, you're golden. Because they all have sick fills, all these songs. Like, okay.
That song slaps, BB.
it is.
This song did in fact slap. The lyrics were juvenile.
They were.
As all hair metal lyrics are.
Okay, so Hanoi Rocks is another band that was a deep cut that I feel like a lot of people have started talking about recently because James Gunn has like, ever since Peacemaker came out, he's like, this is one of the greatest hair metal bands ever. And amazing we haven't talked about Peacemaker as kind of like revitalizing the genre. We didn't even like talk about like Home Sweet Home and like how John Cena's playing that on the piano in there. Like he fucking loves hair metal. But it's not necessarily even all of the songs.
They did a lot of deep cuts, which was cool.
But they've also got new hair metal bands, right? And I know one that you put out there, Fred, is the theme song to Peacemaker by Wigwam.
A song everyone was all about and probably completely forgot by now, right?
Probably, yeah.
Let's refresh.
Play a little bit.
Do you really wanna taste it?
Ooh, that's hair metal.
Hell yeah.
Sure. Do you want to taste it? I mean, the lyrics, juvenile and sexual. Like this is strip club lap dance music for sure.
Shortcut to your dreams. I'm blown straight to the stars on that flying thing. Getting high. Getting snow blind games. Pikachu, Chickapoo in the world beyond. Gotta be.
It's a great tune, and I feel like that opening even made it all that better. That song came out in 2010, which.
But like, could you? Does it just feel like it's a like almost like a copy of like a Motley Crue song?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like let's make a Motley Crue song in 2010.
Kind of like when The Darkness came out.
Yeah, they were very much a tribute to hair metal. I feel like that was the evolution, and maybe this is sort of the capper on the Show Me the Franchise segment, is the legacy of hair metal, is that some people have tried to bring it back in time. And yeah, I think Peacemaker was the latest effort of like, here's somebody who clearly listens to a lot of like late era, like bands influenced by the 80s hair metal era that are still trying to carry on that legacy. I don't know, you hear a little bit of that, like that band that's in Alan Wake as well, like the Old Gods of Asgard. You think about that, man. Well, I don't want to spoil anything for the second game. There's a fantastic song in that, but it's just fun to see like the new era bring it back.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that hair metal kind of has in its legacy.
Mm-hmm.
The style, the tone, the attitude, also the theatrics, the imagery and the showmanship. And some of that carried on, like even after the 80s, like the theatrics, when you look at the music videos and the costumes and like the stylization, it was like a whole show. Starting, if you go all the way back to Kiss, right, with the masks and the makeup, and then transitioning throughout the 80s. And then when we, covered new metal, one of the big things we were talking about was how much the entertainment and the costumes and the imagery and like the showmanship was a big part of the new metal era.
Right.
And it was like an evolution of what hair metal was kind of doing, I think, in a certain way, as we kind of reflect on it.
I mean, yeah, maybe we'll end up seeing it come back in a new form because new metal will give birth to. Well, new metal already did give birth to what was
all it? Metalcore and post-hardcore and all these other genres, but you are seeing it now. There's a really popular band that's trending now, not to get too deep into the rabbit hole, called Sleep Token, and Sleep Token is like trending over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's dark metal, but also the vocals are very like hauntingly melodic. And the Sleep Token's whole imagery is they all wear costumes and masks, so their identities are concealed. And they like have this presentation, this style that they're like a religious cult kind of thing. So all the fans worship the same like goddess that they do. And like, it's this weird kind of approach, and like they're trending all over social media, and they're very popular. They're becoming very popular very fast.
It's kind of cool to see this full evolution, and also see this podcast come full circle talking about metalcore again, and the evolutions that metal keeps going through, and like, what will it give? When will be metal's next day in the sun? Or is it ever going to happen again with just how weird music kind of like comes out now? I don't know. But maybe that's where we can look back and finally give tribute to what are our top 3 bands of the hair metal era. Josh, as our fine guest, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I think number 1, and I remember asking this question when we were first discussing the idea of doing a hair metal ep. Van Halen. I've given a lot of credit to Eddie throughout this episode. I had the pleasure to see them back in 2012 with Kool and the Gang opening, and that's a very memorable concert experience for me. And Eddie is one of the greatest guitarists in my mind. So Van Halen, my number 1. I don't consider their entire discography to be the hair metal style, but love Van Halen. Can't get enough of it. Some of the best guitar work of any rock band, I think, we've ever seen. So Van Halen, number 1. Number 2, Def Leppard. I know I've been like the only one of the 3 of us like singing their praises, but man, that was like a revelation for me seeing them live at Summerfest. Always, like just when you go to a concert, you're expecting to see one band, and that, like this band that you're excited to go see, and then the opener that you've never heard of just completely surprises you. And like, that's always like a really awesome experience. While I had heard of Def Leppard, it wasn't like I'd never heard of them before. I went in being like, I'm not going to care. And it was like, it stole the show. It was the highlight of the night. And ever since I've been like, I can get down to Def Leppard.
Yeah.
And they got like 2 really good albums, multiple banger songs. Photograph, one of the best like rock songs, I think. of the 80s period. I didn't talk about it all episode, but Photograph, that chorus. Ooh.
Well, let's listen to a little Photograph. I feel like we listened to quite a bit of Van Halen already, so we'll just give people a little extra taste of Def Leppard.
'80s drum, baby. There's the one thing about 80s drum is I think it gives room, because of the tempo of it, it gives room for the guitars and the lyrics to breathe in the gaps between the drum strikes.
Sure.
I think that's part of the magic. Third, this is tough because, again, like I said at the beginning, I don't love the genre. I got to pay a lot of respects and tribute to Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue for, doing what they do. But I'm going to go with Bon Jovi.
Ooh.
Because Bon Jovi, I grew up with Bon Jovi of like the late 90s, early aughts. Like Fred and I were talking earlier about It's My Life. Like that was Bon Jovi to me. And I remember when I asked for the latest Bon Jovi album for like my birthday or Christmas from my mom, and she was like really excited.
Mm-hmm.
And she got it for me and we listened to it in the car, and she was like, "Oh, this is a little different from the Bon Jovi that I know." And then she played me some of the old, stuff. And, I just never really like put two and two together, like growing up, because I never saw the music videos and I didn't grow up in that era. But like kind of going back to it, like, whoa, it's a different vibe. But all the original hits are like bangers. They're classic and they're great. So
yeah, I did see Bon Jovi. I don't know if I told you guys that. There was I totally forgot that was the other hair metal band. I was like, wait, there is one more. And then I remembered, yes, I saw Bon Jovi. Goo Goo Dolls opened for him.
That checks out.
Yes, it did check out. I'll describe the whole show as fine. I was not blown away. I was also, because I saw him in 2004, I think. It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I expected. They didn't blow me away, but they didn't disappoint either. So.
Yeah, and that's where I was really struggling on this third one. Like the first two, I'm very adamant about. The third one, I feel like is the third slot for me is interchangeable with a lot of these bands. Mm-hmm. So I give a lot of kudos, a lot of credit. But Bon Jovi, I think, like I like all his music. To me, it stands the test of time a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I have fun listening to Motley Crue. I don't consider it good.
Yeah, I hear you.
There's that. And then I'll throw in this random honorable mention, and you may not even think it's hair metal. We didn't even talk about them. Europe.
Oh, of course, The Final Countdown. If you haven't heard of that song, we'll spare everybody. I want to give some time. You know The Final Countdown. It's the final countdown. Do-do-do-do. That's all they need. Good picks, though, Josh. I like it all, and I think Bon Jovi is a good final pick. I like it. Fred, do you want to go next, or you want me to?
Sure,
go?
I'll go next.
Okay.
We'll be doing some repeating, I think, but number one for me is gonna be GNR, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Mostly, and the reason why it gets the number one spot for me is, I think I mentioned it before, Appetite for Destruction is a wall-to-wall banger album, and not many of these hair metal bands can claim having a full album that is wall-to-wall listenable.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I would definitely agree with that.
I'm going to also say Van Halen. I like the really upbeat, cheesy Van Halen. Like, I like Dance the Night Away a lot. I think that's a very fun song. And then number 3, I got to give it to Wild Stallions.
Wow. Whoa! That's an awesome pick, Fred.
God gave rock and roll to you? I mean, their music literally saved the universe?
Okay, just because we need one more Kiss song in here, I'm gonna play that one.
Oh yeah, I forgot that like they didn't like make
Wild Stuff wasn't a real band. That's kind of a movie franchise.
Yes, of course, Bill and Ted from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
With the Reaper, the Grim Reaper.
With the Grim Reaper in their band. They are the Wild Stallions. We'll save it for our Bill and Ted episode eventually, but great tune.
Google just told me that song is by Kiss, not by Wild Stuff.
Hey, what, you're gonna listen to Google?
Hey.
I'm not gonna do an honorable mentions band, but I will name check a Guns N' Roses song that's not on Appetite for Destruction. You Could Be Mine.
Ooh.
That people might know from Terminator 2.
Oh,
Judgment Day
Is a bop of a song.
I don't even know if I'm familiar with that, but I'm gonna check that one out afterward to save us some.
Have y'all done a podcast episode on the Terminator franchise?
We have not.
Oh, coming soon, BBs.
Man, you can't have a save on everything.
I didn't claim dibs. I just said coming soon. Like I'm trying to promote in a future episode that you're gonna do, right?
I get you. You know what though, Fred? What was that Guns N' Roses song called?
I've got it right here. You Could Be Mine.
Because my number one band, I'm going to start with my number one, is Guns N' Roses.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. This is a good tune, Fred.
80s drum.
Just listening to Slash Shred. I love it.
That slaps.
Hell yeah.
It's a great song. And I think I love that Guns N' Roses is a band that I can still find music even now. And I'm like, oh, that's a tune that's going to go in the mix. Because like my personal favorite is Mr. Brownstone, because they used to just get a ton of radio play up here. And I won't play the song, but it's just like, we've been dancing with Mr. Brownstone. He's been knocking. He won't leave me alone. That's my best actual impression.
That's awesome.
No.
That's actually pretty good, man.
Yeah, I was here for it.
Like I said, I'd have to go falsetto, and you don't want to hear that. outside of the Red Maple karaoke.
I'll lay some down next karaoke night. I'll lay down some GNR for us. I did Knocking on Heaven Door once, and that took a long ass time. So that won't be getting repeated. Number two, Van Halen. We've played them a couple times. I can't get over. I talked about it. I love both eras. I used to be very much it's David Lee Roth. I think I was kind of pilled by my dad because he's more the older rock kind of guy and he likes the older sound versus the Hagar. But I was like, actually, Sammy's got some stuff. You know, he's got a little sauce. I played some Sammy already. Number three, though, and this was tough. I think we've kind of demonstrated this so far. It's a pretty clear top two, I think, in terms of talent, resonance, all that. I mean, Bon Jovi, obviously huge. Motley Crue, obviously huge. We've talked about them a couple times, but man, I convinced myself. I made a last minute change. I was originally going to say somebody else, but I'm going to go Kiss, y'all.
So technically we have the same top three.
Technically, because it was just listening to God Gave Rock and Roll, and man, I think I've become a bigger Kiss fan over the years than I give myself credit for. The band I was originally going to pick was, in fact, I was going to go with the deeper cut of Poison and be like, I think they kind of define the era because that's my honorable mention. I think they're kind of a silent assassin. And I remember my parents had an 8-track that had a Poison cover on it. It was like somewhat like a girl with a long tongue. She was like a tiger. But there's one specific Poison song that my fiance will attest I sing all the fucking time. And I have to play this one since we've already heard enough Kiss, Van Halen, and GNR. I almost picked White Snake. I almost picked
White Snake is an honorable mention for
and the
sure.
Scorpions is someone we didn't talk about too, and I really like them a lot. But the more I think about it, and the more I'm like trying to be honest with myself, I was like, actually, Bret Michaels kind of was popular for a reason. But one of the songs I really like is called "Talk Dirty to Me," and I'll play you guys just one little
Talk
last
Dirty
sample.
to Me, sex metal?
Do you guys know this song?
Oh yeah, from Guitar Hero.
Yeah, exactly. '80s drum.
You know I never seen you look so good. You never act the way you should. But I like it.
And I know you like it too.
The way I want you. I gotta have you. Oh yes I do. I never.
Behind the bushes until you're screaming for more. Down the basement like the cellar door. And baby, talk dirty to me.
Tom just did the head turn from the microphone, and
I do that when I drive. Like, I don't know. I do like the head away.
I think he might actually say I'm screaming for more, which
Whatever.
is kind of more awesome in a way. Like, but
it's really interesting. We didn't talk enough about Poison throughout the episode here.
because I think they get a rap of being a lot like Rat. Or like I know they're a band that like, oh, they're one hit wonder, but no, it's like they got that song. They've got Every Rose Has Its Thorn. You have Looking for Nothing But a Good Time, and a lot of the songs kind of sound the same vibe. But Every Rose Has Its Thorn is like one of the biggest ballads of that era too, and that's also a bogus journey.
I feel like that's one of those songs that people often think it's a different band.
Yes,
I don't know, but I would think that Every Rose Has Its Thorn probably gets mistaken for a Guns N' Roses song.
I could see
More
that.
than,
The
like,
guitar sounds very Slash.
Anything else, you know?
well, it has Rose in the name too, right?
Probably that might have something to do with it, yeah.
Every gun has a rose.
Hey!
Just like every night has its day. Ow, 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 ow. Every rose has a thorn. Okay. All right, guys. I think that's it for us today. Thank you for all coming to our show tonight. You guys can find our band t-shirts at the door. Don't forget to rate and review the show. You know, find us on Patreon. We have a new Patreon. Sign up for $1 a month. It's not that much. And we got some great content over there for you. You can find us on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. That's the other one. And X, formerly known as Twitter. And this was just sort of a random segue that I just got into like our end of the stuff because I jumped right over the fact that, Josh, do you have anything you'd like to plug before we get to the end?
Check out the Interchange Theater in Milwaukee. I'm one of the artistic directors at the theater. We put on shows every Friday and Saturday. We teach classes for long form improv, sketch comedy, musical improv, all kinds of stuff. We have shows all the time. If you're ever looking for a show to go see and you see Action News Tonight, that is a show that I've created out of my brain. And I have a wonderfully talented cast that performs in that show. It's an improvised news parody. So if you like The Daily Show or Anchorman or improv and comedy in general, come see that show.
Sounds great. Go to theinterchangetheater.com for more information. Fred, anything you would like to plug?
Well, I'm probably just going to let you plug the podcast. I will say May 31st. I don't have the venue yet, but I'll be performing with Stein Improv. You can find them on Facebook or Instagram and find out where that's going to be. I would guess it's probably at Comedy Sports. Could be at the Interchange, but probably Comedy Sports.
Check it out at comedysports.com or to look for Comedy Sports on social. And same with the Interchange Theater. Lots of great improv comedy going on in the city. I've already plugged the podcast, Fred. I kind of went in there because I talked about the band t-shirts, pick up our CDs at the door. You know, we might be out for an encore here, but the encore that we will find out is our next Patreon episode. We'll plug that right now because we're talking a little bit more about wings. We got some wing treats for you guys. Next Main Feed episode. Stay tuned for that. But Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Coming
having
back.
me. I appreciate it. This has been really cool getting to close out the what is now a trilogy of metal music episodes of what started as State of the Franchise and has now evolved into Show Me the Franchise. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, gents.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. And don't forget, Wild Stallions for life.
Just charge my phone and drive listening to you. And what they talk to you about will always be up to you.
We're going to do one more episode.
All
We're
right.
going to do one more episode.
Let's get into it. Here we go. We got our next one now. Josh, so you wanted to talk about Power Rangers, right?
Or is it Terminator?
And Terminator, and we got to tie back into metal music somehow. So industrial, I don't know.
Isn't Terminator heavy metal?
Oh.